In a math classroom, they're running an experiment. One group of students studies topics in sequence, first all the graphs, then all the slopes, then all the equations. The other group studies the same topics in a mixed, random order. When the study session ends, the first group is far more confident. That was easy. I understood everything, they say. A month later, there's a surprise test. The group that studied in a mixed-up order, seeming unsure of themselves the whole time, scores 61% on the test. The orderly group that felt so confident scores only 37%. So the feeling of "I'm doing well" that you get while studying can be exactly the thing that makes you fail the exam. Today I'm going to tell you 10 things just like this. All of them are based on real scientific research. None of them are things you already know, like repeat it every day. Some of them will genuinely surprise you. Stay until the end, because the strangest one, your brain secretly tricking you while you sleep, is at the very end. Most of us, when studying at school or in a course, always do the same 3 things: reread, underline, take notes. I have bad news for you. Science has proven that these 2 methods you love most, underlining and rereading, are actually among the weakest and most useless ways to learn. Kent State University's massive study shows this clearly. We're just fooling ourselves. In science, this is called the illusion of fluency. We think we've learned something because the text feels familiar, but at the moment of the exam, the brain comes up empty. Throughout this video, I'll share 10 findings from academic research that most people have never heard of in their lives. I'll show the source for each one because these aren't made-up productivity tips. They're the results of real experiments. Ready? Let's begin. Item 1. The hypercorrection effect. Imagine you answer a question with 100% confidence and you're wrong. Then you learn the correct answer. At that point, your brain doesn't calmly say, "Okay, correct it." On the contrary, it experiences a kind of shock. The feeling of, "How could I have been so sure about this?" kicks in, and that moment of surprise practically nails the information into your head. Here's something genuinely counterintuitive. You'd normally think the more confident you were, the harder it is to correct your mistake. But the opposite is true. A wrong answer you were very confident about, once corrected, turns into far more durable learning than a low-confidence mistake. Scientists explain this through the surprise created by the sudden collision between your prediction and the actual answer. The moment the brain catches this contradiction, it switches into a pay attention here mode. But there's a small sneaky trap. This surprise only wakes you up for a moment. If you don't test yourself again after learning the correct answer, that alertness fades away and your brain is left with something like a button that says, "Restore the old mistake." Indeed, a week later, the chance that a mistake made with high confidence will resurface turns out to be even higher than for a low-confidence mistake. So that moment of shock opens a window of opportunity for you, but if you don't reinforce it, the window closes and the old mistake comes back. Item 2. Studying by mixing it up. Remember the math experiment at the start of the video. This is called interleaving, mixed studying. Studying topics in a mixed order rather than in blocks makes you feel slower and less successful while you're doing it. But on the real test a month later, the difference that shows up is more than double. The reason is this. Your brain has to solve the question of which method do I apply to which topic all over again each time. This builds genuine learning, a genuine ability to discriminate between methods. When you study in blocks, this discrimination never has to happen because you already know which method to use. It's the same as the previous question. The lesson to take away is simple but annoying. If you feel comfortable and fluent while studying, that might actually be a warning sign. Item 3. Drawing is more powerful than writing. In one experiment, participants were asked to study some words by writing them and others by drawing simple, even badly drawn pictures. The result, only 20% of the written words were remembered, while 45% of the drawn words were remembered. More than double the difference. The most interesting part is this. Scientists can't fully explain it through familiar concepts like visual imagery or deep processing. Drawing has its own distinct memory effect that hasn't been fully solved yet. So when studying a topic, sketching a small diagram with a pen in hand, even a bad one, can be more useful than pages of notes. Item 4. How an old test affects new learning. You've always heard the advice, test yourself, your memory gets stronger. But a lesser-known extension of this is, Testing yourself on one topic also increases your capacity to learn a completely unrelated topic that you haven't studied yet. When short quizzes are inserted into lecture videos, this strengthens not just the tested section, but also the new information that comes after it. One explanation is that interim tests reset the brain's encoding process, making you more open and ready for the next section. So asking yourself small questions while studying strengthens not just the past, but the future as well. Item 5, the hidden condition behind reading aloud. There's advice that says read aloud, you'll remember better. But the most interesting part of it is always skipped. This effect only appears when some words in a list are read aloud and others are read silently. If you read the entire list aloud, the difference disappears completely. So for the brain to make one piece of information stand out, that information needs to be processed differently from the rest. Studying everything with the same method, the same tone, the same rhythm cancels out that method's advantage. This explains why the habit of I always study every topic the same way is a trap. Item 6. The brain's secret rehearsal during sleep. Now let's get to the strangest part of the video. After learning a motor skill, playing piano, typing, a sports movement, in people who take a short nap, a brain activity called sleep spindles intensifies exactly in the region related to that movement. And this intensity predicts the performance improvement after sleep. But here's the most striking part. Researchers noticed that without realizing it, participants were silently rehearsing the sequence they had learned internally during training. So it turns out that the brain runs a rehearsal inside without your knowledge, and this rehearsal determines which region will be strengthened during sleep. Item 7. The power of doing nothing. Sitting quietly for 10 to 15 minutes with your eyes closed and doing nothing after learning something new produces stronger memory retention than spending the same time on a distracting task. And here's the truly annoying part. Reaching for your phone and scrolling social media after studying also weakens memory performance compared to resting quiet. So that reflexive urge to grab your phone right after studying actually interrupts the brain's process of recording the new information. Item 8. The effect of thinking. You'll teach it. In one experiment, participants studying material were told different things. Some were told, you'll be tested on this. Others were told, you'll teach this to someone. But the teaching part never actually happened. It was just something they were told. Even so, those who thought, I'll teach this, remembered the information more accurately, organized it better, and especially recalled the key points more clearly. So even telling the brain the lie, you're going to explain this to someone, changes the quality of learning without any extra effort. Item 9. Sometimes forgetting helps. According to memory researcher Robert Bjork, memory has two separate dimensions. How solidly you've stored a piece of information, this never decreases, and how easily you can currently retrieve it, this decreases over time. Letting a piece of information sit and be somewhat forgotten before restudying it is actually efficient, because when retrieval strength drops, remembering that information again contributes more to its storage strength. So the best time to review isn't right before you forget something, but right at the threshold of forgetting it. The entire mathematics behind spaced repetition systems is built on this idea. Item 10. Our two favorite methods are actually the weakest, and we've arrived at the most frustrating finding. In a comprehensive review, 10 popular study techniques were tested. The result: the two methods students use most often, rereading text and underlining, fall into the weakest category when it comes to improving learning. The reason is something called the illusion of fluency. Rereading a text gives you the feeling of, I've learned this because it feels familiar, but this feeling doesn't match your actual recall capacity. In the same review, the two methods that came out on top were self-testing and spaced repetition. That's all 10 items, all based on real research. And there's actually a common theme. Methods that give your brain the feeling of, this is easy, generally mislead you. Methods that feel hard, that make you work your brain a bit more, are the ones that actually work. Which of these 10 items surprised you the most? Write it in the comments. Let's talk about it. If you liked this video, hit the like button, and you can subscribe to my channel for more scientific but practical content like this.